You want to get into Boston University, I want to help you do it. My name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach. You can learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process on my website, which is collegemeister.com. And if you're interested in learning about whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States of America, visit areyouontracktogetin.com. Again, that's areyouontracktogetin.com, at which you will complete a free 3-minute assessment. Your results will be emailed to you right away, and they will help you clarify whether or not you are or your student is on track for selective college admission in the United States of America. Tip number 1, if you are serious about getting into Boston University, you want to read my article, which is How to Get into the Ivy League Ethically. You can find that linked in this video's description. Of course, Boston University is not an Ivy League institution, but the tips included in that article, whether you're a 9th grader or a rising 12th grader, will help you lay a very strong foundation for success during your 12th grade year in terms of getting into a school like BU. So I definitely recommend you read it from top to bottom. Tip number 2 is if you are extremely serious about getting into BU, you got to play the odds. And it is certainly statistically easier to get into Boston University if you apply early decision 1 or early decision 2. BU has an early decision acceptance rate for its class of 2027 of 26%. That is still only 1 in 4 getting in. But its regular decision acceptance rate for the class of 2027 was a paltry 9.4%. So that means that its early decision to regular decision ratio, the early decision to regular decision acceptance ratio, was 2.8 to 1. Almost a 3 times higher chance of getting into Boston University if you're applying ED1 or ED2 than regular. So the early bird gets the worm, as they used to say, and you definitely should, if you are willing and able to commit to attending Boston University, because it is binding early decision, you should strongly consider applying to BU early decision in order to stand out and to give yourself the best statistical chance of getting in. Tip number 3, take seriously the Common App essay. I'm not going to talk about the Common App essay in this particular video, but I have videos in my description for this video linked, so you want to watch all of those so that you can be the very best Common App essay writer you can be as you're applying to a school like BU, because they're going to read that and it's 650 words where you are in the spotlight. So do take it seriously. Tip number 4, let's talk about the Boston University Supplement. There are so many different combinations and permutations of majors or schools you could pursue. What I will say is this: there are some schools at BU that are certainly easier to get into than others. There are some programs that are certainly easier to get into than others, but you don't want to just change your spots to fit in. So look at all of the majors that you could be interested in, and then try to do as much research as possible into their relative selectivity. If your overarching goal is to get into BU, then maybe you are willing to compromise on maybe your first choice major if your second choice major is so much more appealing to you as it relates to its acceptance rate, not necessarily the actual content covered in that major, but actually its acceptance rate. However, if you would be compromising too much just to get a higher acceptance rate, I'm a big believer in not changing your style of fit in at all. And you should put on the application the major that really is the one that you want to start hitting the ground running with right away. So I don't want you to become so uber strategic about your choice of majors that you end up finding yourself accepted to BU and then in a major that is not appealing. Do note that beyond selecting for what major you want to pursue and what school at BU you want to pursue it, you will be asked, would you like to be considered for the College of General Studies? If you answer yes, in addition to your program of application, you may also be considered for admission to the College of General Studies. And that is a nice sort of starting holding pen, if you will, for you. If you really have a first choice major, you want to try your hand at it, but then it doesn't work out for you and you'd still want to go to BU for another way in, if you will, that's basically where you can study abroad your first year of college. That's a way that BU can pad its coffers, and you're not actually physically there at BU's campus, but maybe you are in a fun little place like London or something like that. And that could be a great way into BU eventually, if they feel as though you maybe need some fine tuning before you start BU's experience in earnest in Boston, Massachusetts. My next tip is let's dive into the supplement in greater depth. There are two big things I want to talk about. The essays, there's two options on the BU supplement, and then also something that so many students overlook, which is sort of hanging out there below the essay questions, which is this little additional upload option. Let's talk about that first. At the very bottom of the essay questions section of the BU supplement to the Common Application, there's a little upload button, and it says right above it, additional information, optional. Please use this space if you have additional information, materials, or writing samples you would like us to consider. Notice how they don't use the word resume or extracurricular resume. That's because they're tricky over in Boston. The fact of the matter is, 9 times out of 10, my students will upload a full-fledged extracurricular resume to this upload button for BU, because the Common Apps activities page is very skeletal. You don't have the opportunity there to share the depth and breadth of what you've really accomplished throughout your high school years. Many students applying to BU are quite exceptional in terms of their extracurricular output. Maybe they've done 15 different activities throughout high school, and they're leaders of really 4 or 5 really original ones, and they have lots to say about them. So you're never going to fit all that into the activities page of the Common App. So this optional upload would be a wonderful opportunity for the vast majority of BU applicants to upload what I would call an extraordinary extracurricular resume about themselves. And in order to learn how to put together an extraordinary extracurricular resume, please go to my short course with the name of How to Build an Extraordinary Extracurricular Resume. It's going to teach you everything you need to know about putting your best foot forward as it relates to communicating about your extracurricular activities throughout your high school career. It's over at extraordinaryresume.com. I will again link that in this video's description as well. Whether you're an artist or an athlete or all of the above, taking that short course, it's less than an hour in length. It's only $19. It's going to really serve you well so that you can elaborate on what you've achieved in whether it be 5 activities, 15 activities, you name it, in a way that you just simply can't elaborate on in the Common Apps activities page. So I'm really happy Boston University gives you that opportunity to flaunt your stuff, strut your stuff. That's good for you. You want to sell yourself. Unfortunately, this is not something that many students are taught to do throughout their high school careers, particularly international students, but even domestic students are often very shy, very bashful. They don't want to stand out. They just want to follow the rules. They don't want to make any trouble for anyone. And so they just fill out the activities page and that's it. Well, that's ridiculous. You got to bust out of that mindset and you got to really sell yourself. You don't want to have a 15-page resume. At most, I would say a 2-page resume. But again, that short course of how to build an extraordinary extracurricular resume will teach you how to do just that. My next tip has to do with the essays. There are short essay options on the BU supplement, the Common Application. And these are what they read as. Before you actually get to choose one of the two to respond to, it says this: Boston University is dedicated to our founding principles that higher education should be accessible to all, and that research, scholarship, artistic creation, and professional practice should be conducted in the service of the wider community, local and international. These principles endure in the university's insistence on the value of diversity in its tradition and standards of excellence, and its dynamic engagement with the city of Boston and the world. With this mission in mind, please respond to one of the following 2 questions in 300 words or less. It should say 300 words or fewer, but what do we expect these days from academic institutions in the United States? And then they give you 2 questions. The reason they give you that preface is because they basically are telegraphing to you that this is the opportunity to share something that they can't consider in the racial status section any longer. So if you have anything exotic or underrepresented about your identity, you may want to infuse it into your essay a little bit here. But they're not going to explicitly say something in their actual formal essay questions that would tip you off to that. So that's why they want you to read that little preface. But here are the two options that you have. Number one, reflect on a social or community issue that deeply resonates with you. Why is it important to you, and how have you been involved in addressing or raising awareness about it? So this is a really good essay question, again, for individuals who may want to talk about a social issue that has affected them and is therefore important to them. And a lot of the ones, of course, that BU is interested in these days are those having to do with demonstrating to them how you would bring some sort of diversity to their campus so that they could claim to be that much more of a diverse campus. It also is a really good essay prompt for individuals who don't want to do the research into BU or Boston, and maybe it's not their first choice BU, and they're just willing to get on their little soapbox and talk about some topical or social or community issue that is important to that applicant, and they're just going to basically do a little short emotive book report on that topic and how that topic has intersected with this person's lived experience, as is often stated on some of these other apps these days. Basically, what have you done about it? How have you been involved in addressing or raising awareness about this social community issue? So don't just say that, I'm really concerned about racism in my home state and then have no proof to back that up. Like, they want you to basically point to how you have gotten involved in this issue in some meaningful way. Have you spoken in front of the school board because you feel like you want something changed in your local school district? Have you run for office at your school? Like, what have you done to try to address this issue or raise awareness about this issue? Again, race is just one thing you could talk about here. You could talk about the environment. You could talk about some international issue that is of concern for you. You could talk about something completely having to do with nothing hot topic related. And you could just talk about something, maybe like there's a traffic safety issue in your small town, and you have advocated for a stop sign where there wasn't a stop sign before. That is a community issue. It obviously has nothing to do with race, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be race. I obviously bring up race because I know what their goals are here at BU. But the point is, you can write about whatever is truly important to you as long as you have proof that you've actually taken action in order to affect positive change in your community or in the world in one way, shape, or form, or have attempted to, and can really show that here. It should not read as a resume entry, though. It should read as a short essay. There should be a 1 to 2 sentence intro with a thesis, a body that proves or supports your thesis, and then a conclusion that goes a step beyond your thesis if you respond to prompt number 1. You officially have 300 words or fewer, but the actual Common App gives you 350 words with which to work. So by all means, go hog wild. If you want to go up to 350 words, you can, but that is where you can max out. The other option, if you don't want to respond to that prompt, is prompt number 2, which is, what about being a student at BU most excites you? How do you hope to contribute to our campus community? This is really great for the student for whom BU is their first choice. And they've done their research, they know about Boston, they know about BU specifically, they want to talk about a particular professor, a particular major, a particular program, or various ones that all resonate with the student. I would recommend you not pick off more than 3 or 4 at most particular BU specific opportunities, because then you're going to go too broad and shallow. I want you to go deep and narrow. So your goal should be to maybe pick off 2 to 4 that really resonate with you, things about BU that really align with your value system and your goals and make it a great match for you. And then go deep into describing why that's important to you and how you will take advantage of those opportunities that exist at BU. Again, the more specific you can get, the better. If you could write this to Boston College or Northeastern or Brandeis or Tufts, you have not gotten specific enough with BU. If you could write it to NYU, this would be a no-go. You obviously want to personalize it enough, make it bespoke enough, where you are speaking as though you only have eyes for BU. And that means you really do have to pick on specific opportunities that only exist at BU, but don't just laundry list them off. Explain why these opportunities resonate with you, connect with you, and make you a great match for BU and BU a great match for you. Again, I would set it up with an intro with a 1 to 2 sentence thesis, a body that supports or proves the thesis, for several sentences, maybe a paragraph, maybe two if they're short paragraphs, and then a concluding sentence or two that wraps everything up nicely. Doesn't just restate the thesis in new words, but actually goes a step beyond the thesis so that you are leaving them wanting that much more of you because you've said something new, thoughtful, and reflective by the end, maybe even philosophical, that makes them realize what a thought erudite individual and applicant you really are. Finally, I want to say one more thing, which I failed to mention earlier, which is my last tip. I don't know what number we're up to at this point, but it's my last one, which is if you have a 1450 or higher on the SAT, you submit that score, my friend. It's going to help you at a school like BU because BU, for its class of 2027, I mean, this is amazing to report. Only 30% of applicants to BU were submitting the SAT, and only 10% were submitting the ACT score. So what I mean by this is that in the worst case scenario, only if you assume they're all different people, only 40% of students applying to BU for the class of 2027 submitted the ACT and or the SAT scores. So they're really operating without a radar currently in terms of true objective accomplishment and achievement at BU. They're basing it off of your transcript. And as we know, transcripts are all fake these days. They are all inflated. Most schools are loath to give students anything below an A-. So BU, of course, likes that because they don't have to see, the real version of their applicants. They can see the airbrush version of their applicants. But the SAT score, ACT scores still are somewhat objective and not fully inflated. So the reason I'm bringing that up to you is if you are capable of scoring in the high 1400s or higher, submit your scores on the SAT or the equivalent on the ACT, because that would be a feather in your proverbial cap in terms of proving to BU that you really have what it takes to succeed from day one at BU. If you're below a 1450 on the SAT, obviously it's a case-by-case situation. Obviously, if you're like a straight B student and you have a 1430, the 1430 still looks better than your straight B. So I would still submit the 1430 in that scenario. But as you get below 1450, it becomes more a judgment call on what the rest of your application looks like, whether or not your scores would be a net positive or negative for you. In that situation, you, of course, would maybe want to work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process, or maybe just for part of it to get a sense of, how your scores relate to the rest of your application. To learn more about working with me one-on-one, get a strategy session, maybe go to collegemeister.com to learn more about that. Beyond that, I would simply say that again, the scoring thing is a big issue when you think that this is an educational institution and they have basically no objective factors with which to judge their applicants these days, when only 40% at most, if you take 10% from the ACT score submissions and 30% of SAT score admissions, a grand total of 40% of applicants at most are submitting their SAT or ACT scores to BU for the class of 2027. That's madness to me. When, again, 10 years ago, all of them were required to submit SAT or ACT scores. So what a world we live in today, but that's another story for another day. If you have strong scores, submit those scores to Boston University. Finally, I want to expose you to a new product that I am starting to offer during the 24-25 application cycle. It's known as my Pread. When you've finished your Common App and you want to know if it's as strong as possible and whether or not in its current condition your chances of admission to Boston University are impressive, inconclusive, or inadequate, you want my Pread. Getting my Pread now means having me review your entire Boston University application, your Common App, and your BU supplement, just like an admissions officer or an admissions committee at BU will review it later, and receiving by email a comprehensive report from yours truly highlighting what's working and what's not on your full Common App and your BU Common App supplement. If you've yet to submit your Common App to BU, my Pread may motivate you to make adjustments to it before your deadline. If you've already submitted your Common App to BU, my Pread will prepare you for what I deem to be your likely admissions outcome at Boston University. That report will be informational and entertaining. I call it infotainment, and it could help you a great deal. So if you want to learn more about my Pread and purchase my Pread now, go to mypread.com. Again, that's mypread.com. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process, go to my website, which is collegemeister.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, stay stress-free throughout the entire college admissions process.